The man with no name. The guy who had a leading hand in making westerns as iconic as they are today. Even if you're not a big fan of the western genre or even know next to nothing about it, you've probably heard the name somewhere before. Ironic considering his name is literally the man of no name. But why is this character so popular? There must be some reason. From basic looks, it's just some white dude with a poncho and a quick hand to the draw. What's so interesting? What's so captivating? What makes the man with no name so iconic? Well, it's right down to the men who created him and their mastery of a basic rule of storytelling. The Man of No Name comes from a very unique genre, the Western. Westerns are known for their outlaws, gritty shoot-offs, and barren wastelands representing a dark yet so empty time in America before it finally evolved both culturally and technically in the beginning of the next century. That may sound interesting on paper, but to be completely honest, most westerns are just that. Barren wastelands, guys yelling, shooting, shotgunning, and most westerns do the bare minimum in showcasing just how gritty the Old West could be, and rather focus on the exciting train heists and hat-wearing bastards of yonder. There is no substance in most Western movies, but there can be. It's up to the director to take the seemingly empty waste of a place and rather switch the narrative, or characters, to make it more captivating. It's up to the director and his team to use what they're given to make something interesting. That's the whole appeal of Westerns. Stories like Unforgiven and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly are great at showcasing the gritty nature of this wasteland with interesting characters that drive the plot, while also giving us exciting moments of pure exhilaration to add to the movie. These characters and settings are reminiscent of the show don't tell rule. We're being shown these moments and being shown these incredible characters. We're not being told that they're just part of this world. Enter the man with no name, who perfectly encapsulates what this rule means. The thing about the man of no name is just how quiet yet deadly he is in every scene, and just how mysterious he is. He's not given a name, at least not outright in the movies, as he's only given nicknames like Joe and Fistful of Dollars, which itself is just a thing people call each other in the 19th century that didn't know their name, an average Joe. In A Few Dollars More, he's referred to as Manco, which is Spanish to describe someone with one arm, possibly to describe how he did everything in the film with just his left hand. In The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, he's referred to as his Blondie by the character Tuco for simply his blonde hair. He's not given a name. He's not supposed to have a name. He's a man of mystery, a man only known for his massacres and weird sense of justice. He rarely even talks, because he doesn't need to half the time. He shows what he's thinking without saying it, just like an outlaw in the Wild West.
You see, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns, and those who dig. You dig.
It's just really a theory of mine, but I think the reason why he had no name is so that we could fill in our own.
With his now iconic status, many characters have been inspired by the Man of No Name, mostly characters who have Western tropes attached to them. The most recent example of this is The Mandalorian, where the main character, Din Djarin, draws obvious parallels from Clint Eastwood's iconic role. It's even said by Jon Favreau that he did extensive research on Sergio Leone's Star Wars trilogy to plan out Din's character in the show, often asking himself what would the Man of No Name do when writing the scripts for the episodes, and relating those answers with what Din actually did end up doing in the show itself. When we are first introduced to Din Djarin in the first episode of the show, the influence should be pretty striking. Notice the cantina doors opening to reveal this ominous character. And as the show went on, more influences start popping up. There was a high focus on the morale of this character, similar to how the moral and juristic opinions of the Man with No Name character were always up in the air, with him not necessarily being a bad person, but not a good person either. In the case of Din Djarin, we're introduced to him with no background, and instead of telling us what he would do in each situation, they show us, like in the first episode with the sea monster attack. However, The Mandalorian isn't the only character to be based and highly influenced by the Man of No Name. There's a certain character who predates the birth of Din Djarin by more than a few years, a few decades even. If you know me by the slightest, you know who I'm talking about. Enter Boba Fett. Boba Fett made his first appearance on the big screen through Empire Strikes Back, and when you first meet the bounty hunter, you know next to nothing about him. All you know is that he's a bounty hunter, and the matter of fact, the name Boba Fett wasn't even uttered until Return of the Jedi 3 years later. Boba Fett was simply referred to as bounty hunter by both Vader and Lando in the film.
He's all yours, bounty hunter.
Just like how the man of no name remained nameless. Though his namelessness isn't the only influence the man had on Boba throughout the Star Wars franchise. Jeremy Bulloch, who played Fett under all the armor, based his mannerisms and movements out of Clint Eastwood's character. He cradled his gun as the character to make it look like Boba was ready to fire at any given moment, and in the scenes where Boba was leading the guards with Han and Carbonite, he purposely walked stoically and slowly to make it look like Boba was watching for his surroundings. Famous sound editor Ben Burt added sounds of jangling spurs to give off the feeling of a gunslinger walking through an abandoned town with iconic Western spurs at every step. Boba was given a poncho to reiterate his connection with the Western trope, as well as a quiet demeanor, only talking if the situation at hand is at all important for him.
He's no good to me dead.
Boba in Empire Strikes Back itself shows a lot of man of no-name qualities. Like I mentioned before, he rarely talks, only when he really needs to give off his input. He doesn't add input when Han is being tortured in the scene. He just stands there, waiting for Vader to give him an update. No one-liner, no conversation, it's just pure silence. He also has a strong sense of independence and has no problem back-talking his clients if they throw unnecessary obstacles at him. Notice in Empire how Boba quite often questions Vader's decisions, even at his angriest moments. Keep in mind Vader was slaughtering Imperial commanders and lieutenants left and right, but despite this, he doesn't do anything to Boba, showing that he clearly has some sort of level of respect for him.
Syntegration.
As you wish.
Boba displays a high sense of danger in his presence in Empire as well. He doesn't cackle at every obstacle he throws at Luke, he just does and doesn't tell. Notice the scene where Luke is hiding from Boba, and as he walks by, Boba tilts his head a little bit. He knows he's there. He doesn't ram to investigate, he waits for an opening, and once Luke puts his guard down, he strikes. It's not just the films, however. Boba has even more development and parallels to the Man of No Name in the comics. A big part of the Man of No Name character is his mysterious yet straightforward morale. If the Man of No Name takes a job, he's doing it partly for a reason. He's doing it because he has a sense of justice, a sense that some people deserve a bullet to the forehead while others don't. Since the comics obviously have more room to showcase Boba than the movies, this dynamic of the morale is displayed almost front and center. Age of Rebellion Boba Fett is a recent comic, only releasing last year on May 8th, 2019. I did a review on this comic if you want to check it out, and I need to redo that review, speaking of which. But anyway, the basic gist is Boba will take any job if it fits his morale. This sense of justice is illustrated very well in Age of Rebellion, as we see Boba unmercifully slaughter gang members who wrongfully torture and rob village folk for no reason. This sense of justice is honestly shown extremely well in the comic, and Boba rarely talks in the comic at all, which is another plus. Another example I want to use is Star Wars Tales, which was a series that focused on short stories focused on major to sometimes minor Star Wars characters. Each issue focused on a few or one character, and for Star Wars Tales issue 18 it focused entirely on Boba and Jango-centered stories. One story in particular played a huge role in showing readers the moral code of Boba Fett. The short story in question was titled Being Boba Fett. In the story, Fett takes a job from a client which requires him to hunt down a famous gangster. Seems easy enough, except once Boba has hunted down the gangster, he offers him a secondary job, a living Jedi, who has been the eye of discussion for several bounty hunters for a few months. Boba takes the job since the pay is more, and once he finds out and chases down this Jedi, however, he finds out he has a child, and killing his father would result in the boy becoming just like Boba after the famous Battle of Geonosis. No father, and alone. This single panel of Boba's helmet tells you everything you need to know. It's incredible how an angle of a helmet could display so much raw emotion. Boba returns to the gangster who sold him to this Jedi and disintegrates him as he deserves. I honestly love this comic because it's one of the few that really tackles in on the morale of what most see as a soulless bounty hunter. And the truth is, Boba isn't a money-hungry killer. He's a person who has lost, and kills the people who rightfully deserve to be killed. He's silent and talks only when needs be. He's deadly only when it's necessary. He's dangerous only if you're dangerous to his eyes. Boba Fett is one of the few space western characters, in my opinion, who encapsulate the Wild West outlaw trope so well. The Man of No Name inspired him in a lot of ways, all benefiting his character. To a sense of justice coming from the loss of his father, his silent demeanor coming from his ability to hide his weaknesses and weak points, and more. The Man of No Name may have inspired Boba's creation, but it's with Boba's ability to showcase his nature and morality that he built his own character. You may say Boba didn't do anything in the movies, but that's the whole point. Boba doesn't need one-liners or an epic space fight. He collects his bounty and continues his adventures elsewhere, from hunting gangster scum to helping Hutts in their troubling marriage. That's not a joke, by the way. He's not an all-powerful Jedi, a cackling Sith, or a person of importance for the rebellion or even the Empire. He's a man of mystery. He comes and goes and accomplishes only what he wants and needs to accomplish. He isn't just a cold-blooded killer. He's a goddamn Terminator for the ones that deserve it. Just like the man of no name.